welcome! Today I'm hoping to turn this flattish piece of willow into a little sorcery tray. Now this sorcery tray started life with my intention of making it into a bowl, but things weren't going very well and I didn't get a bowl, I got this little sorcery dish, which I've just dropped. So I'm hoping today to actually make a sorcery dish. That is the intention from this piece of willow. I've set you up at a different camera angle over the lathe. So let's see how that works and if you get a better view at what's going on. So let's make a start. Actually, before we make a start, I will show you what I've been up to over the past week or two. You may have seen my previous wood turning videos where I showed I'd made this lovely little willow bowl that I've been very pleased with, and I liked its shape so much I decided I wanted to try and recreate this with another piece of willow wood, and I was very pleased that I managed quite well. This is a slightly larger bowl from the same piece of willow tree. I did have a problem with this one though. Obviously when I turned it round on the lathe after carving the shape of the back of the bowl, and I flipped it round and glued it on ready to hollow out the insides, I obviously didn't line it up quite correctly before gluing it down. So inside, if you look closely, you can actually see I'm quite narrow at the edge here, but on the other side of the bowl the rim is fatter. But other than that, it's a perfectly functional bowl and works really well. And at a quick glance, no one notices it's slightly off centre. The exciting accidental thing about this bowl is my first little bowl fits inside. So I have a set of two lovely little bowls. So for my next attempt, I took the largest chunk of willow log that I have, and very pleased to have successfully turned it into this beautiful willow bowl. It's got so many black stripy marks in it, it's gorgeous. And the intention with this one was to make another bowl with that same side lip on it that I'm really enjoying and liking. I think this has got to be about the largest bowl I've made so far. Getting hold of a large piece of wood has been the challenge up to now, as much as being capable of making a bigger bowl. So I was following the same pattern and design because I'm liking it. And as I was carving out the inside of this bowl, I wondered, could I carve it deep enough to put my other two bowls inside? So I rushed off to the kitchen and got my second bowl and brought it into the workroom to match it up for size. And I was thrilled and delighted to be able to carve this deep enough to fit my bowl inside. So now I have a lovely little set of three little bowls, all made from the same log of tree. So that's been a very successful project. I like them all. That's not true. I love the big one because it's big, and I like my first one because it's solid and chunky. I'm a little dissatisfied with the one in the middle. Its side walls are a bit thinner than I would like, and obviously its top rim is not even. But as part of the set of three, it works really well. I've also been making lots more little Christmas trees. They're great fun. Now, let's get back to carving today's little saucer. So, wood on my faceplate. Screw that onto the lathe and tighten it up with the spanners provided. Don't want it flying off. I'm still using the two chisels that came with my lathe. There's my skew chisel that I'm liking lots, especially now I can sharpen it. And the bowl gouge also gets used lots. Again, nice and sharp. piece of wood on the lathe, nice and tight. Now let's adjust our tool rest. Trying to remember the name of all these things. Right, my wood is not catching there, so out. Just so nothing is catching. And then I can tighten this up. Actually, I'm going to come in a bit closer. So the centre of my tool rest, the strongest bit, is next to where my wood is. And obviously I don't need the tailstock because here is where I'm going to be carving. No, I won't. And I'm still using gloves. It makes me feel safe. Don't nag. Right, let's just check this on slow speed first, make sure it's running okay. I think you might like to not be here, cat. So now that silly cat's out of the way, I can make a start. I'm using my bowl gouge first to start rounding up this lumpy bumpy piece of wood. Quite quickly, it's surprising how much wood has been removed. Time to move the tool rest in a touch and take a look at my piece of wood and see how things are going. And back to carving away some more wood. It doesn't take long before it's time to stop and take another close look and see how our work is going. Looking good so far. I'm very pleased with it. Let's move that tool rest in a little more. And a gentle turn by hand just to make sure nothing's touching or rubbing. Editing this video, I see my lathe is starting to slowly creep across the workbench. It's surprising how that really doesn't trouble me when I'm working. So let's stop and put it back straight and have another look at our piece of wood. Getting nice and round now. This time I'm starting to carve away a bit of a round area at the bottom of the bowl. See how much of the remaining bark I can remove, so I don't have to reduce the diameter at the top. Time for another inspect and see how things are looking, making a decision as to how to progress from here. Next, I think I'll cut a flat edge in here. Give me a nice clean rim to the top of my bowl. Saucer, plate, dish, whatever it becomes. Adjusting my tool rest, I've noticed it's quite wobbly. That's not good. Then I notice where the problem lies. So I'm going to take it out completely and fix it. That's if I can get it out. Heave ho. But it will remove it. Come on, yay! I've identified the problem. It's not the chisel rest where it screws into the lathe itself at the bottom. It's this nut here. It has an Allen key fitting, so I'm going to tighten it up. Find the right Allen key bit. Perfect. Now where's the rest of the screwdriver? Tighten that one up. That should help stop things wobbling around. Off. That's better. Nothing's moving except the whole lathe, of course, because I'm still not screwed onto my workbench. Right, back to work. Let's just check that again isn't rubbing anywhere. It shouldn't be. Now we're getting roundish. It's not touching at one point. It shouldn't be touching anywhere. I'm sorry, folks. I might screw the lathe down one day. Maybe. I'm changing tools and using my skew chisel. Time to flatten out that top edge and make it nice and neat and tidy. Slowly pushing the chisel forward into the wood to cut a nice flat surface for the rim of my bowl. I don't need to cut all the way to the centre. It's just enough to make a nice smooth rim. The centre of the bowl is all going to be carved out in a moment. Back to the bowl gouge for a bit more reducing of the sides. See how deep I need to go to remove that bark. Next, I've decided it's time to take the bottom off of this bowl and make it nice and flat. So I'm changing chisels and going back to my skew. I'm sorry you don't get to see this very well. The camera's not at the best angle for the bottom of the bowl right now, but I've left it in as you do see the bowl becoming shallower while I flatten out the bottom. Now let's get that chisel rest in a better position for flattening the bottom of the bowl. It's staying nice and stable since I tightened up that nut. I think in this bit I was carving a little divot in the bottom of the bowl. Not sure why, it won't be going onto a chuck. I don't have one, not yet anyway. Now for a little sandpaper on that bottom edge we've just carved. So now I'm going to round out the bottom of my little tray deep enough to remove the last bit of that bark. So back with the bowl gouge we go, rounding out that corner. Lovely. Let's make life a bit easier and readjust our tool rest to a better angle for what I actually want to do. Now I can get at that corner much better to round it up and start creating a bit of finished shape to this saucer, tray, bowl. That's coming along nicely. Oh look, I quite like that. So this is bark, not solid wood. I don't know if I want to keep it or not. Is it strong enough? Feels like it might be. I might keep that little splotch just out of interest. I don't know, not sure. Quite a corner to rough it out. We'll see what happens. If it disappears, I don't mind, and if it's still there, well, okay. Think I'm done. As a finished shape, I'm liking this. I like that little rim around the edge that I've created. And the curve's good. Yes, time for some sandpaper. I used a few pieces, started at 100 grit and worked my way to 240. And then gave it a polish up with some of my wood shavings as well. A little tip I've picked up on another YouTube channel. Okay, now to turn this one round and scoop out the inside. Tools. So using the spanners that came with my lathe, they're a bit flimsy, but they fit. And they do work. That faceplate does get incredibly tight, which is a good thing. Unscrew the screws for my faceplate and take it off. Now I can't remember if I said at the beginning of the video or not, I've made myself a new gluing block because I don't have a chuck. So I've made a new block of wood to use for gluing my pieces onto. So I'm going to put my faceplate onto this. This is where I would very much advantage from having two faceplates. That way this one could just stay screwed on this piece of wood all of the time. So this is now my wood chuck. Tighten it on. And just my wooden chuck. My wooden glue-on chuck. So we take the saucery bowl that we're making, and I'm going to put its now finished bottom up against my wood block. And because my tailstock wiggles about and isn't guaranteed to give me a dead accurate point, and I might want to move things a little, this may not be good yet, I've got to sacrifice a very flat piece of wood. I think this was a bit of skirting board left over, so I'm going to put that against the bottom of my bowl and bring in my tailstock and lock it in place. So whether it's true centre or not doesn't really matter, because I can still slide this piece of wood around. Nothing's fixed in place yet. I can slide the whole bowl, I can loosen it all off with the screw and tighten it up. So I'm going to bring my tool rest in. Now using the back of my pencil, because I don't actually want to make marks on my wood, I'm going to tap that against the edge of my bowl and hold it really firmly in position while I rotate my piece of work around. That's actually looking quite good. Let's see. Ah, there, it's obviously catching there, it's rubbing a bit. There. I don't know if you can see, but the camera angle, maybe not. I've got a big gap there. So here my pencil's touching the wood, and as I rotate it round, now I've got about a 3mm gap here between the wood and my pencil. So that means I need to bring my whole piece slightly towards me. So I'm just going to give that, oh, I think I've gone too far, but we'll soon find out. So the same process again, hold my pencil against my piece of work and rotate it towards me. Yes, I've got a gap and it closes in. Oh, everything's too loose. Try that again. So this is the bit that takes a bit of fiddling. It's fiddly and it's a pain, but it is so worth it. Pretty smooth, touching, just a little gap. So I'm going to glue this on now with my hot glue gun. I'm just applying hot glue between the back of the bowl and my wood piece. It is amazing how securely this glue holds onto it. If anything, up to now it's been a real struggle to remove it. But now I have my nice round piece of wood to glue it onto instead of the square block I was using originally. It's a lot easier to remove. When we get to the end, I'll show you how it's a lot easier to remove. There we go. Yay! All glued up. So now it's cup of coffee time again. I want to leave that there till it's really firm and set. Right, so now this glue's gone nice and set and hard. We can take away all this kerfuffle. And now I'm going to set to carving out the inside of this bowl. Saucer, little tray. I don't know what, little tray. But I don't think you're at the best camera angle to see what's going on inside here. So I'm going to move you around onto the tripod.
Switching on slowly to start with, just to make sure everything's nice and secure.
See how round I actually got it. If I rest the back, the round bit of my bowl gouge on my piece of work, if it bounces around a lot, we're not very levelled up. If it stays nice and smooth, obviously we're in a perfectly lovely place.
Oh, wonderful. The very slightest of vibration. Perfect. I'm generally very pleased with my lathe carving achievements and how I am progressing in skill. See these wonderful curly wood shavings I'm managing to create? Apparently a sign that my chisels are nice and sharp and at a good angle, cutting beautiful smooth ribbons through the wood. Couldn't be happier.
Now I did attempt this the other day, and when I got to this stage of carving out the middle of my sorcery tray, I stopped and decided I rather liked this ridge in the middle and wanted to keep it. I just had this vision of my little sorcery tray full of Maltesers and one sitting on the top of this little dome. So I carved the centre point out on purpose with a little divot in the middle, and continued my hollowing with every intention of keeping this centre spout. And I'm really happy with it. Something a little different and quirky. You may not wish to fill it with Maltesers or M&Ms, but it would be quite good. Small bits of jewellery in, rings and earrings. Instead of them all sitting together in a clustered heap in the middle of the dish, they can be separated around the edges by this centre rise. So a quirky little piece of wood, and I love it, just like all the things I've made. Now, back to today's little sorcery tray, and let's see if we can make it a saucer like it's supposed to be. All these lovely curly bits of wood show that my bowl gouge is nice and sharp, cut at a good angle, and that I'm working it well in the centre of the bowl. So I'm very pleased to see all these little ribbony curls. Woo! Just found this on the floor. Look at this big ribbon of wood. Wonderful.
Now I'm making myself a bit of a guide so I know how deep I want to carve into my little saucer. I've laid one of my spanners against the back of the bowl and I've pushed a cocktail stick right up to it. I'm now marking with a red pen the edge of my piece of wood. So now if I stick my cocktail stick into the bowl, I can visually see how much more depth I have left to carve, because obviously I don't want to carve too deep and come through the bottom of my bowl. So now I can see better how much further I can carve out the middle of my little saucer, bowl, tray. One day I'll decide what to call it. Previous viewers may have noticed I finally built myself a bench to put my lathe on, although I still haven't screwed it down. I've also moved from the greenhouse into a room in the house. I love this lathe turning so much, I want to carry on. And come the winter months when it gets dark early and it's cold and miserable outside, I can't see me wanting to be in the greenhouse carving pieces of wood. Indoors I can be nice and warm and have the electric lights on for as long as I want. Well, not quite. This is a noisy hobby, and that is why I still have my old rug underneath the lathe. It helps deaden the noise and sound for my neighbours. I've promised them I won't work any later than 7 o'clock in the evening. I feel that's only fair. At this stage of my sorcery tray, I'm using my chisel with a round carbide tip just to finish things off nice and smoothly. Ooh, that's feeling lovely. I'm pleased with it. Time to stop. Move my tool rest out the way and give things a final sanding.
Now in the past, in order to remove my piece of work from my glue, I was using my craft knife to cut away at this glue, trying not to damage my bowl. But now I've made myself this nice round wood block that it's on, instead of the old square one I was using. I can cut my bowl off of it using my skew chisel. Now this doesn't just cut away at the glue, it actually, the spinning creates such friction that things get hot and it melts its way through the glue as well. So I need to be ready to catch my bowl as well as softening up my glue. It doesn't need to be stupid fast, slow will do. Now I still have glue on the bottom. If I let that cool, because it's a little warm, it's not too hot to touch, it's just soft and springy. But if I let that cool off, it's much easier to remove. But now I've got it off of my mould, so I'll get this all tidied up. This was the one I was aiming to copy, though this is a piece of pine and this is a piece of willow. It's a lot bigger, which is nice. And a saucer inside a saucer, like my stacking bowls. Perhaps I'll make a bigger one still. The depth is about the same. So yes, I'll clean this one up and we'll have a little shallow saucery plate. Nice. It's also bigger than the one I started the other day and kept my little ridge with. So bye for now, and we'll see you next time. If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to click that like button and let me know. Click subscribe and YouTube will make sure you see my next video. So bye for now, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.